Hi, my name is Barrington Miller, Director of Issuer Engagement at the Canadian Securities Exchange. And today I'm here with Greenway, Jaime CEO, and Darren Peddle, CFO. For those of you who may not know anything about Greenway, gentlemen, could you please tell us what it is you do? And I'll turn it over to you.
Greenway is a greenhouse cultivator of cannabis. We own two facilities. We have a nursery facility in Kingsville, Ontario, where our head office is. And we also have a cultivation facility that is mainly for flower, and that's in the Leamington area. We have a 45,000 square foot flower facility. And there we do B2B bulk packaging of dried cannabis.
Now, Leamington, there's a lot of names, a lot of big names that are associated with Leamington. Our audience may not be from around here. What is so special about Leamington, Ontario?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess we can talk about a little bit of our heritage because, our families immigrated in the 1950s to the Leamington area, coming from Italy. It was a very nice area for agriculture in general. We became involved in large-scale agriculture throughout the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, and recently and currently as well through Del Fresco Produce. We own and operate, our background is really large-scale indoor agriculture. So we own and operate about 120 acres of greenhouses indoors. And really, the reason why Leamington is so important and such a good climate area, we have a lot of daylight hours. And our elevation is close to the northern point of California and very similar to Rome as well. So we have a lot of climatic advantages in our area, as well as a lot of the, because of the size of the produce industry, a lot of the industry businesses have set up here. So we've got a lot of supply businesses for the climate computers, fertilization computer systems, as far as the fertilizer suppliers. They're all kind of local here, and that really leads to being efficient at the end of the day when you're doing a large scale operation, whether it's cannabis or produce.
This company, it has a background and has been doing something very, very similar and doing it well for a very long time. And these are things that are really important for investors to know about. Every company doesn't do it by themselves. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the team and support that you have around Greenway.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, because we are owned majority by Del Fresco Produce and Sunright Greenhouses, you can imagine we are able to pull a lot of our know-how and our expertise from a lot of our team members on the produce side as well to help out. But that being said, we've got Darren Peddle with us, is a great CFO. He's really come into his role excellent in the last few years when we started Greenway. We've got Nick Nedden as well that's come on board, who has a lot of experience in cannabis. And also our master grower, Jawad. Jawad has a lot of experience in large scale agriculture, but also in cannabis. He worked in California in Humboldt County and really is keen on growing proper genetics for certain climatic periods. So for the spring, the summer, the winter, and the fall. Really, doing the same as we do in vegetables and in produce. So we've added a lot of, and as well as Jake DeYoung as well, that's our CAO. He's been very great in regulatory affairs and just keeping the team focused, and I think on point. It's really great to be able to have that ability to pull individuals from our main business. Really allows us to keep our costs down at Greenway, and really allows us to be innovators and still use that the new company approach as well.
Now, cannabis, we've heard a lot about it in the news.
Yeah.
It is everywhere. Markets are going up, markets are going down. There are a million cannabis companies out there, a million different brands and all of that. Now, we're going to clear the haze, no pun intended. What's your differentiator at Greenway versus everybody else?
Yeah, you know, Barrington, it really is. I don't want to harp on it, but it's our background. It really is. We are growers at heart. We grow, we build facilities, we're able to scale those facilities. We've done it. We've started with a half acre of greenhouses for production on our produce, and we've built that over up to 120 acres. So it really is that know-how. The cannabis plant doesn't lend itself to scale properly. It just doesn't. It needs a lot of man hours. It needs that tender loving care to take care of it. You know, and you're under Health Canada regulations. And what we do well at Greenway is we have that experience. When we started with Greenway, we started from that agricultural background and building it small, right sizing the facility. That was very key at the start, and really doing the two separate facilities, having a nursery and a flower facility. So there's no contamination in between the two. That really allows us to be able to get out our 4 or 5 crops annually in the flower. And you know, right from the onset, Darren mentioned himself, says, listen, guys, we're going to start with 1 acre. As we can grow it, we can sell it, and we can do it profitably. That's when we'll build up the model. And really, that's what we're doing. We're basically just executing on our goals.
No, that's great. And that's a great role that you've taken on, Darren, and having an important CFO is vital for the survival of any company, let alone cannabis.
Well, thank you. I mean, there was a lot of excitement in this cannabis industry years ago, mainly probably because everybody knows it grows like a weed, it grows really fast, but there's so much attention and detail needed in this sort of business. And we, like Jaime said, we have the background, we're just transferring that know-how. And we treat this like agriculture still, because I mean, it's still a plant. It's a different plant, it has its own needs, but we wanted to have the approach that this is agriculture. And what does that mean? It means we need to stay very economical. We need to keep our cost per gram as low as possible without sacrificing quality. And especially we have to keep our overhead low. And I think that was something that was lost on the industry in the first generation of companies, let's call it, because everybody thought you can grow 1 million square feet. If you grow it, you can sell it, and you're going to sell it for a lot of money. And it doesn't matter how large your administration is.
That's so true. And you know, Barrington, you have to remember as well, like the cannabis plant, the inputs and the costs that go into it is very high. So at the onset of legalization, when we had that funded capacity in these larger facilities, it was one thing to build the facility, but then to actually plant it all, right? With not knowing what the market side of things was going to do. And I think that's really, again, it goes back to our background and saying, you know, let's make sure there's a market there, first of all, make sure it's a great product, make sure our costs are in line. And at that point, we can scale it.
You know what? I never really have the opportunity to have a CFO as part of these discussions. So what is one of the surprising costs, if there was one that was a surprise for you? One that you're like, okay, we we have to be careful with this, or I didn't know it was going to be this much, or anything along those lines, just to give us an idea.
I'd say that the bios is much more expensive than we'd expect in, say, regular conventional agriculture. And by bios, we mean using good bugs to combat bad bugs. Obviously, contamination and is very important. Risk mitigation is extremely important. So we're not afraid to spend money on that. But I guess that was the one that's a little bit surprising of how much it could rack up in cannabis. But we still managed to keep our cost per gram very low.
For our audience, if you want to check out some other programming called Tech Tuesdays, we do feature companies that talk exactly about what Darren's talking about, also listed on the CSE. So check out Tech Tuesdays, www.thecse.com, on CSE TV on YouTube. So that's my plug. No, that's really interesting, and there's a lot of cool and innovative things that are being done in the industry, and keeping that balance and keeping that sheet balanced is vitally important. Now, if there was a new investor who's listening to this show right now, what would they have to look forward to from Greenway in the next 3, 6, 12 months?
There's a lot to look forward to in Greenway. I mean, we're just getting started. We've only had 5 quarters under our belt. We've just harvested. I would say we've been harvesting just over a year now. Okay, we've done multiple batches, and we have very good partnerships and throughout the industry and the B2B market, and those really are expanding weekly. At the onset of Greenway last year, when we started, the OCS actually shut down any new listings. So you could imagine having to grow a new product and not be able to sell it and distribute it properly. So we were really caught in a bind there. Thankfully, we found a lot of good partners in the industry to work with, to begin working with. But we've really seen that sales velocity, since May of this year. Once the Ontario government really opened up, obviously there's a lot more volume flowing, and you're really seeing that in our last quarter. Also, we have undertaken a new expansion, 124,000 square feet. So we will be a total of close to 175,000 square feet of flower facility once it's completed. And that's really going to take place, hopefully to be licensed there by our first quarter of next year of 2023. So those are really exciting things, as well as the fact that really our company structure, we have a lot of inside ownership as far as management. We do own the majority of Greenway, and we want to keep it that way. We're looking for a long-term business, a viable business, and really that's our strength and that's our goals.
Speaking of long-term, what's the outlook, long-term, the landscape for cannabis, the way that you see it and how you're prepping for it?
Well, I mean, we have a very biased opinion on that, of course, but I suspect there is going to be some destruction in the company. I don't mean destruction of inventory, but I mean there's going to be a lot of consolidation. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of companies that just don't have a pathway to profitability, and you're going to see them drop off, and there'll be a handful of key large producers. I think there will always be a place for the craft producers as well, but there's only going to be a handful of large producers like ourselves. Hopefully one day as well, the US jumps on board and legalizes cannabis and opens that border as well. Our parent company, the Del Fresco Group, currently ships a lot of product to the US. We do a lot of business with the US, and we'd like to do that as well with cannabis as well in due time. We're very pragmatic with our expansion plans, and we've got a lot of room to grow in Canada still, so we could wait for the US, of course. We'll tackle Canada first, and hopefully the US one day.
All I'm hearing is distribution channels that are already lined up. That's what I'm hearing. So these are things that investors really, really like knowing. Well, listen, Jaime, Darren, it's been an honor to interview you. Thank you for choosing the CSE as your home destination for all things capital markets related. We wish you nothing but continued success. I've been your host, Barrington Miller. This has been an update / newly listed clip with Greenway. Greenway, doing things the right way. We'll see you on the next episode. And don't forget their trading symbol, GWAY, trading on the CSE.